having, a long career with some big ups and some big downs and surviving that, and now having a very balanced life, I think, with some amazing people, friends and supporters and family, and a great team. And I would hope that I've got lots of people who, respect me for that. And I've got, I would hope, a few years ahead of me yet.
That was British eventer Lucinda Fredericks. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Chris Stafford, and the Horse Show is brought to you by Equestrian Collections, the one-stop shop for horse and rider clothing and equipment. At Equestrian Collections, you'll find all the familiar styles of leading brands in their fall and winter collections, including apparel, footwear and equipment. There's also a clearance sale on Ariat and Course products with up to 70% savings. And with some really cute riding jackets for kids too. Visit them at equestriancollections.com and do mention the Horse Show podcast when you place your order. Lucinda Fredericks is a familiar name to anyone in eventing, having been in the sport since her junior and young rider years, which turned into a very successful senior career with a string of 3- and 4-star horses. Her partnership with Headley Britannia captured the big three, Badminton, Burghley and Kentucky, before the mare retired to the breeding barn. Lucinda's team silver medal on the Australian team in the Beijing Olympic Games was another career highlight, followed by a second Olympics in London. While her focus has shifted away from 4-star level, she still has a full yard, and her focus now is on training the younger generation, and not forgetting her job as groom to her daughter Ellie. Well, I was going to start by saying joining me now is a very old friend of mine, but I think I should probably say we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, careful what you say. I'm still younger than you.
yes, you always will be. But how are you, and welcome back?
Thank you. Yep, not too bad. Not too bad.
Good.
Yeah, still a bit lame. I had a nasty accident 8 months ago now. So, I'm still hobbling around and just dealing with a very, very nasty knee injury, which is ongoing. So life's been a little bit different this year.
Well, you've had your challenges, haven't you, with accidents and injuries over time as a professional rider. They happen to all of you, but this one was a kick on the knee, wasn't it? How did it happen?
No, I didn't get kicked. I was getting on a horse, and the person holding it didn't hold it. So the horse moved, and it ran, and I wasn't quite in the saddle. So I was like a rag doll and had to bail out, and just thought, just roll. So I rolled. My upper half was fine, but I must have landed sort of on my feet. So my femur, my big thigh bone, went straight through my knee joint and my tibial plateau. So the whole knee was just shattered. I thought it was just dislocated, so I said, get an ambulance, get some ice. Paramedics arrived. I said, just, put it back in. Please, just put it back in. They said, no, we can't do that. We're going to take you to hospital. So they took me off to hospital. And 2 hours later, they came in and said, it's not good news, and it's a really bad fracture. So I spent 9 days in hospital, and then had it all operated on. 3 months on crutches, no weight bearing, and then did everything I was asked to, physio and gentle, whatever, walking. But the bone graft hasn't taken. So now it's got a long way to go. So I've got a machine, actually it's an American machine called an Exogen machine, and it's supposed to, it's like an ultrasonic low impulse bone or electronic stimulator, and it is the sort of most successful way of stimulating bone growth. So I've got this machine on for 6 months for 40 minutes every night, and it's got to be done at the same sort of time every evening. So I just sort of disappear off drop my trousers and or lift my skirt, whichever way you want to go.
Okay.
And it's just like an ultrasound head. You have to put it on. I have to put it on two separate places, sort of on the outside and on the front, just below my knee, so below the patella. And I have to have 20 minutes on each area, and I've got 6 months of that. And then hopefully, if the bone, starts to fill out and calcify and whatever, then there will be a better opportunity of giving me probably a new knee. So yeah, I've got a long way to go.
You're going to be out of the tack for how much longer, do you think?
Well, I can sit. I sit on Ellie's. They're not even ponies now. They're honies, because they're half ponies and half horses. So I ride my stallion, Britannia's male, and I ride Ellie's 3 honies. And I've got one other that I sit on that's predictable. If they're not predictable, I can't do it. And I literally I can school, but not massively effectively, because the left side is so weak. But it's actually riding in walk, and left canter is the most comfortable. Right canter's not. Standing up in stirrups is a no-no. And so therefore jumping's out as well. But it's
I was going to say that. Yeah,
sensible.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Sensible.
I can't imagine that you be able to leave the ground just yet with that. So it sounds like a long haul back. So let's talk about the horses that you have in the yard at the moment, then, and those that are waiting for you to compete.
Well, I've been lucky because I've had Rebecca Howard base with me. She's here, so she's had fun on my 2 Brit children, who are, of course, are 9. Britannia's male, Little Britannia. Marley the stallion, he's back at stud at the moment for a month doing frozen semen. Last year he did the frozen semen for America and Canada. And then this year he's gone back to stud because basically we're running a bit low for the European frozen semen, because they're tested for different things. So, you've got to have your European batch and your American batch. So he's back there having a great time because he hasn't been on the dummy for about 11 months. And he's having a great time. So doing lots of, they do about 3 collections every week. And that just, gets frozen and stored. And until next spring when clients contact us and say, can we use your stallion? And then the little mare, I've managed to do 2 embryos with Upsilon, who is the stallion belonging to Tom Carlyle, the really stunning stallion, French stallion, that won Blenheim CIC last year and Barbary this year. And he's just stunning. So I've managed to do 2. I only wanted 1, but actually I think we've ended up with 2 embryos from Upsilon and Little Britannia. So that'll be exciting. And then I've got another. I've bred from a Hedy Britannia daughter. I've bred a pony foal. So I put one of Brit's daughters to a 12-2 jumping pony. And I've got the most delightful, gorgeous little pony foal, which, we're hoping is not going to grow bigger than 14-2. And I've put her back in foal because she's only 4 coming 5. So she's had a foal at 4 and she'll have another one at 5 and then probably, work her. And then I've got a Prada daughter. So Prada and Oslo. Oslo was William Fox Pitt's Poe 4-star winner. They had a daughter, and she is now 4. She's had a Britannia male foal. So, yeah, I don't know why I'm breeding them all. They're not for me to ride, but it's fun to just play with them and see what they're like and produce them. And I enjoy producing the young ones, even if I'm on the floor. You know, I've got a really good staff and a good team of riders. And, you know, Rebecca does the sort of more serious work. And then my sort of team of working pupils I've chosen very carefully this year. And I've got a very, very good boy who's a bit of a cowboy sort of style-wise, but he's got great stickability, and he'll be really good to break the young ones in over the next few years.
Perfect. Well, that sounds like a busy yard as ever. And I want to talk to you about a couple of things this time, Cindy, but particularly you've been very successful at building your brand as you know, in the first half of your career, when you came out of juniors, young riders, and you established yourself in the senior ranks, and then when you were in partnership with your ex-husband, again rebuilding a brand, a combined brand, but now you are back on your own, and you have successfully rebuilt your brand again. I want to talk about some of the components of that. Obviously, having the loyalty of owners and the loyalty of sponsors. What do you think has been the right mix for you, and why it's been successful?
Oh, just having a really good network and a good relationship with your owners and sponsors. You know, and then you've got to work hard at keeping them happy. And, you know, putting yourself out for them and not just taking. You know, a lot of it is putting back to the sponsors what they need. And, I mean, the main thing I think I've got is I've got a great team in my office. I've got a brilliant PA, Deb Faulkner, and my marketing sort of communications girl is Emma Charlton. And they work really well together. And they're nice, you know, personal people who are fun, interested. They've learned so much over the last 5 years with me. Gone through, you know, everything, good and bad, and they've learned so much, and they're really good at keeping a balance on things. You know, if I get a bit overexcited or start, you know, not being very businesslike, they'll say, hey, you know, actually, you do need to charge for that, or actually, you do need to go and do that. So I think your team, not just on the yard, but in the office, is hugely important. And just being, all my sponsors are friends, you know, they've become friends. And, you know, my biggest sponsor, which is Pure Feed, John and Lou Calder, they are great people. We, you know, socialise together. We go to the rugby together. We go to concerts together. They come with us to all sorts of functions. And then, you know, they've been really good friends. Bruno from Westgate, which is Gatehouse, and Rodney Powell, and all that sort of all the Westgate trades. You know, they do all the saddlery, all the riding gear, all the rugs. I mean, everything you can think of. And that's who, you know, Mark Todd's in partnership with. You know, Bruno's a good friend as well. So, and you got to keep up, you know, the communications is the most important. And because I do quite a lot, I do a lot of clinics, I do a lot of teaching here. You know, there's a bit of traffic that sort of goes through here or through my website, and Emma deals with all that. I mean, I personally don't do Facebook. You know, if I did, well, I tried it once and I couldn't keep up with it, and it was just, it was a nightmare. I couldn't deal with it. But she does all my, you know, we discuss things, I write things, she puts it up. And there's, you know, probably stuff that we miss, but I think the majority, I mean, she's actually won a couple of awards for, you know, having the best website. So it's, Emma's not full-time. She does 2 days a week for me. so she has another job as well. But she's very, very astute. And I mean, Deb Faulkner is amazing. She's got, family, 3 kids. She's very local. And we, they go onto the yard, they talk to my staff, they talk to Kelly McCarthy-Main and Rebecca in partnership together, they talk to their staff. It's a big business. And just, on the yard, I mean, going back to the horses, I've got probably 17 horses in. I only mentioned about 4 or 5 of them, but I've got half a dozen, dealing horses that I go and source and buy and produce. That's been really hard because I haven't been able to go out for the last, 6-7 months. I couldn't fly. I couldn't fly for 6 months. But that's starting, handers. And then I've got some owner horses. Ellie's got 2 super 15-handers that she's doing B100s on successfully. And for her birthday, I managed to buy into a half share of a super little chestnut 7-year-old called Mandoria that she's done, I think 4 events on and been placed every time. And then she's got a lovely Connie cross thoroughbred belonging to great owners of mine, Bridget and Simon Hall. So we've got 17 horses in and about 9-10 horses out, a few older ones and mares and foals and stuff. So, and that's just on my side of the yard. And then Kelly and Rebecca have got another sort of between 12 and 15. So it's, it's a busy place and lots of work to do. And the brand side, Lucinda Fredericks Equestrian, I developed back in 2013. And with the help of Emma and Debs, really. And, new sponsors came on board. They thought, right, here we go. We want to be involved with Lucinda, which was fantastic. It's a different thing when you're not at a top level competing. I've been there, done it. Happy not to do the very top level. I did want to take the 2 Brit children to 3-star level this year, and obviously that was, put a stop to when I hurt myself. But you could deal with things in different ways. You can still be a massive asset to your sponsors just by doing different things. And I'm very lucky because I've got Ellie.
Yeah, and as you say, it is servicing the sponsorship, obviously, and it is very competitive, not least of all in eventing in the UK. There are plenty of riders there looking for sponsors, and they're looking for products, because the days, I think, of cash from a sponsor are in the rearview mirror now. It is more about getting the products, isn't it? But servicing that, because of the value, of course, in terms of, what you're getting with all the variety of different products. But you've made it successful. I wonder if social media has played a part in this, or, Facebook is only one aspect of this. There are so many different social media outlets these days, and how important that is to pay somebody to come along and keep that machine, that animal, if you will, fed constantly to keep your name out there and in the public eye. Even though you're not at the top level, you have to look after your sponsors and stay visible. Oh,
completely. I mean, one of the greatest examples is the fact that, I was not going to ride at top level. I'd basically promised Ellie that. She didn't want me to ride at top level anymore, not at 4-star level anyway. She was really happy for me to go with Britannia's Mail and Little Britannia's 3-star. And, I said, okay, I'm here and I won't put myself at that risk and then fall off getting on a horse. But that's the way it goes. And Devico approached me at that point and said, you know what, we still want you to be an ambassador for our saddles. Please will you take on Devico? And I was absolutely astounded, and I thought, yep, of course I will. And we've had a great relationship for 4 years now, and it's been amazing, and it does it's sort of, in a weird way, when you're not completely absorbed by your own program, your own performance, your own success, your own plans, your own ambitions, you actually see the bigger picture, and you can give your sponsors more time. So it's, when you're riding yourself, you don't see that, or it's easy not to see that. But you can actually, I go to, all this year I've been to events not riding, but even last year I had more time, less stress, less pressure, and more time to, enjoy the opportunities with the sponsors, with the owners, and basically seeking new clients, new business in a more relaxed fashion, really, and they like that. Not probably some of them don't. Some of them just purely want the big success and the big names, and they'll go somewhere else because that's not me anymore. Lucinda Fredericks equestrian is the mechanics of it is different. It's not all about going to the Olympics, going to the World Games. It's very much more bringing in new clients of teaching at all levels. I still do a lot of work in Holland. I go to Holland 6 or 7, 8 times a year, and they come over here as well. And then I've got where Ellie goes to school, which is literally a mile up the road, Dauntsey's, which is it's a great, lovely, lovely school. And I teach all the riding team. And next weekend, Ellie's off to the championships with all her friends. She's going to have a ball. And we've had such, that brings in a new level of rider, a new level of parents, really. And I think, so therefore the variety has become bigger. And, without my team in the office, Emma is brilliant at, bringing in new business, whether it's clinics, whether it's horses, whether it's seeing things for charity. I do quite a lot of not charity work, that's the wrong word. I donate things to charities, to raffles, to certain causes, and Emma's brilliant at doing that. And that's really good for your name, for your brand, to be associated with that.
Absolutely. Well, obviously you've got the full circle complete in terms of all the different spokes in the wheel that you totally get it, because you've been doing it quite a while now. And I want to come back to the one thing that you mentioned there about Ellie, of course, your daughter now turned 14, who is riding, and she has the ponies, or the honies.
The honies.
Yeah, she's not going to be short of a ride. I'm wondering, though, because we often see successful riders, Lucinda, who have children who they encourage to ride. Maybe because children are around it, they pick it up because it's available, it's there, it's something their parents do every day. Where does Ellie fit into that sort of radius of, yes, I want to do it because mummy does it, or actually I'm passionate about this and I want to be an international rider?
I don't push her, because the last thing I want to do, to be fair, is she comes back from school, when it's summertime, and it's just okay now, but next week when the clocks go forward, you won't be able to do it. She can come out of school at 4:10 or 5:20. If she wants to ride, she'll ring me up, say, can you get me up? Can I come up at 4:10? And she'll ride, and then she'll do her homework afterwards if she has it. She doesn't have it every day, but most days. If she doesn't, we have a deal. She has to let me know by first break, which is about 10:15 in the morning. Because then, if she doesn't ride her 2-3 ponies, then I'll do them. And is she passionate? No. Is she dedicated? Definitely not. Does she want to be out there before school, after school? No. And you know what? Thank God for that. The last thing I want to do is to be out there after 6 o'clock at night. You know, I have another life. I have a new life outside of horses, and which is, you know, fantastic. And we have, you know, a social time after work hours, which is, you know, now I see that. I didn't for 30 years of my life. And I'm very lucky that I've sort of seen the light a little bit. And I love the sport of eventing. And I think if you can balance it, you know, the biggest important part of my life is my daughter. And she's 14 already, you know, and in 3 or 4 years' time, she won't even want her mum. You know, they grow up so quickly. But the fun that we have had the last year, and especially this year, going out eventing, you know, she's actually quite good. Is she the most neatest stylist? Probably not. But gosh, she's gutsy, and she has a really good natural. She has a very good natural eye, very good natural feel. And she's just got that. So now she can actually produce something sat on a horse, and she can make it go better. And what she has, and I don't think you can't teach this, is she has the right reaction in the moment. So if she's going cross country or show jumping, and something happens, whether it's a sort of an awkward jump or an awkward distance, or a horse that, you know, needs particularly driving into something or slowing down to something, she has a really good natural feel of what to do in that moment. And I don't think you can teach that to somebody. You can teach them to see better strides or ride, you know, nicer or more accurately or whatever. But when they're out on their own, cross country, and she's ridden some 3 or 4 really decent courses this autumn, I've been really impressed. Great stickability. She has actually fallen off once recently. She got pinged out the saddle last week, and was fine. She hung on, then just couldn't. And then she got back on and she said, "Oh, can't I, you know," to the jump judge, "you know, why can't I go? I want to keep going." They said, "We've got to wait for the next horse to go." So she went, the next horse came past, and it was actually Tiana Coudray. So Ellie was then allowed to carry on. And then about 8 jumps later, I'm on my bicycle because I have to ride a bike everywhere at the moment. Anyway, Tiana comes past, and then Ellie's coming by. She goes, "Mummy, what do I do? I'm catching up." I said, "Slow down." She said, "But what happens if I catch up?" I said, "Don't." Anyway, TD came up and said, "You're not allowed to talk to your daughter." I said, "Look, I agree, but she didn't know what to do." I said, "She's got 65 faults for falling off, probably 180 faults for time." I said, "Surely you can let me explain to her rather than, you know, have a dangerous situation." Anyway, it was quite funny.
A teaching moment then.
Yeah, no, it was funny. We all have a laugh. But Ellie and I love going out either on our own. She actually loved it on our own, just the two of us going out and going off eventing. And I mean, if I don't mind doing it with one pony, but with 2, I need a groom because I can't go fast enough, and you know, if something happens, I can't get from A to B quick enough at the moment. So we've had, you know, it gives me a massive amount of pleasure, and I'm not over competitive with her. As long as she rides well, treats the ponies well, comes back safe, and focuses on what she's doing, then I'm really, really happy. And many, many times, you know, I'd say to Ellie, "Well done, I'm really proud of you today." I think every event I've gone to, I've managed to say that, you know, genuinely from my heart. "Thank you, Els, for giving me such a great day. You rode really well, few mistakes." And then she'll come out of the show jumping having, I don't know, not got a perfect distance or something. And she, oh, God, Mummy, I'm really sorry. Gosh, that wasn't great, was it? I said, no, it's fine. Fine, you were a little bit this, a little bit that. She's very, good at taking, she is quite good at taking the criticism. Been a couple of times where she's had a strop, and it's like, Ellie, no, don't get stroppy. There's absolutely no. But she's 14, or just 14 last week.
Yeah.
And I see it with so many kids because I teach the Dauncey team, and they're all sort of between the age of 12 and 17. So it is quite fun. But I'm not over. I'm not over competitive. I promise you, I'm not over competitive. All I wanted to do is to enjoy it, ride safe, and do our best. I do get nervous, and I'm biking around after her. But the two main ponies, Mandoria and Joubert, are 1.6, 1.7. She's produced them, and she looks really good. I'll have a lovely. She makes a nice picture on the pony. She's tall and slim. She's a bit spaghetti-ish. She hasn't got a real core strength yet. That will probably come in the next year or two. She did it. We had a super little spotted pony, 14-1, that she produced, sort of 5-6-year-old, and I promise you, she had to work hard to get that going. And he took a lot of riding, and I think she learned more from Oscar than she has done from anything else, and it's given her a really good grounding. The last year and a half has really, she's learned a lot. And when they're little, until they're actually a certain age and they can actually start feeling things, you can put them on great ponies, which I haven't done. I can't afford to buy her real, super-duper ponies, but we've been extremely lucky that Bridget Hall and Karen Smith, who own these two, have basically trusted Ellie to, ride their horses rather than myself. And that's a massive, that makes me very, very proud that, people are happy for my kid to ride their horses.
Absolutely, that they have that confidence that you do. And you mentioned earlier that she had asked you to stop riding at 4-star, to give that up. Well, why do you think that was, and how did that fit in with your own ambitions, and that you were at a time in your career to say, okay, yeah, maybe I don't need to ride 4-star anymore. I don't have to go for a team again.
Well, I'd done it on Brit. I'd done everything I dreamt of doing, luckily, with her. I had more fun with Prada and Flying Finish. And then once I got divorced, my priorities changed. Ellie was 100% my priority. I suppose, if I look back, she was always, and, that and my horses. So there wasn't a lot of, other time. But life changes and moves on. And, now we want to go on family holidays. We want to have weekends. We want to go off and go shopping together and, just do stuff. And it's, she's independent. She's very independent. She has a good group of friends who she wants to spend time with, have sleepovers with. She's 14. She doesn't want to be, luckily, she doesn't want to do, pony trials and stuff. I wouldn't be able to afford to do it. But, it's on her doorstep, and if she's off to a competition, she'll be out there getting her ponies ready and getting the lorry ready and cleaning and stuff like that. But is she going to make a living out of it? Very much doubt it. She doesn't know. She's fun to do it with because she's good. She doesn't frighten me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
She has a really good sense of I mean, I've put her on a new, two new ponies, 15-handers, in the last couple of weeks at hunter trials. One of them's a 6-year-old from Ireland. I hadn't done a hunter trial before, and she kicked it round. Oh my God, how she got it over fence 1 and 2 and 3. She really had to sit down and ride. And it was ducking and diving and ducking and diving. I wasn't worried as such, because she has a quite good head on her shoulders. But she doesn't sit there pretty, and she doesn't sit there expecting it to happen.
Right, she sounds like a very business-like, functional rider.
Yeah, she grits her teeth, and, she wants to get from A to B. And the odd time, if something goes wrong, and she'll come and say, well, why did that happen? And I went, well, I don't know. It's a horse, it's a pony or whatever. You got to expect it not to be perfect every time. But she gives me a massive amount of joy and pleasure. And, to have that, and with my other pupils, because I've got, 3 or 4 other working pupils here. One of them went out yesterday and won her first ever 90, which is only little, but, for her, she had to go on her own because I was out taking the other young horses and kids sort of hunter trialing locally. And Libby went off, with another ex-pupil of mine, off in my little old red lorry down to an event in Dorset, and came back with, a win, and she was just ecstatic. She said, I can't believe I won. And it's her first event, that she's only been with me 3 weeks. And she was so thrilled. And of course, that is great for the whole team.
Yes.
And it's a big team effort, and it's not all about me. And you know what? I quite like that.
Well, you are of an age, if I may say, you are.
Careful.
You are. You're north of 50, so people, just to put this in perspective, because you always look like you're still, just out of university.
Oh, yes.
And I got to say the right things here. We go back too far for me to start insulting you now. And I think because you're at that point in your career, as you say, your world has opened up in different directions, and you're finding that fulfillment in the bigger picture of the team that you've built as well, and successfully, as I said, rebuilding the brand. But so just to wrap this up, Cindy, give us some pointers for those who are listening. We have a lot of listeners who love their eventing, and they're at different stages of their career. What would you say to them to build a brand in what is a very competitive area of sport now in eventing?
I think one of the main things for me, from the very, very start, was my mother, who was a massive support to me, and she was, my groom for many, many years. Mm-hmm. She always said, wherever you are, whatever day you've had, go and say thank you, and be polite. Say thanks to the stewards, say thanks to volunteers, fence judges. You know what? They remember that. And from those, even from those people I've known some of them for, since I was 15, when I first started eventing in the UK, they're still fence judging. You know what? And yes. I promise you, some of them are still out there fence judging. And they say, oh my gosh, it's amazing to see Ellie out there now. And that's a really important thing, is to show your appreciation to all those people. I wouldn't want to fence judge every weekend. I wouldn't want to steward every weekend. But they do. When you got to say nice things for these poor people. And it's, being polite to people, being aware of who's around you, treating your horses well, treating your parents well, treating your grooms well. Because no one likes to see a child come out off a pony and be rude to their parents or their helpers or whatever, and we all get a bit aggro at certain times. And my mum used to say to me, "Nah, you're going to treat me like that, I'm off," type thing. So I went, "Oh God, okay," because I knew how much I needed my mum. She was a massive help to me.
Yes.
And it's hard when you're under pressure, and the kids put their pressure. They put, they get stressed and all the rest of it. But that's a learning curve right from the start. And then your team. You got to look after your team. Whether it's your grooms, your friends, your family, whoever you talk to. You got to make sure you do talk to people. Put yourself out there without being arrogant or too pushy. Be aware of, when you have success, share that success with the people that help you get there. If you have disappointments, take it on the chin and say, right, how can we improve it? There are, the people that come through your door, whether they might be potential owners or sponsors, or staff, pupils. I mean, I could never really afford to have grooms, so I always had to have pupils. And that's the one thing where I think I've done very well with, is having working pupils and teaching them. So, I make a real effort, and always have done, I can't afford, to have more than one groom. So I always have one groom and maybe 3 or 4 working pupils. So, and they are with me to learn from me and improve and compete their horses. Most of them compete their horses. And you have to put yourself out. You have to make massive sacrifices, not just for yourself, but for them as well, because they're part of your team. You can't do it without it, or can't do without them. I couldn't. So it's all just a build-up. And, as you get bigger and better and more successful, treating people right and trying to, sort of look to the big picture. And that was probably one of my weaker points, is I didn't look to the big picture early enough. And I felt when I got to, mid-40s, gosh, I could run a business, but I could only really run, the business in the yard. I wasn't aware enough of other stuff. Gosh, what I've learned in the last 5 years is unbelievable. And I think, I should actually be quite proud of surviving what I've survived. It hasn't been easy. The crashes I've had have been very much, a lot of them have been earlier. Well, some of them have been due to, not really being in a great place mentally and being distracted. And you've got to cope with the distractions, and the pressures and things that don't go right and the things that do go right. And when you have success, just enjoy it, because it doesn't come easily. The success in our sport does not come easily. So when you do have it, you've got to, enjoy it and bring everybody, who's been around you with you, type thing. Yeah.
That's a good way of, obviously, I think, giving a lot of advice all in a nutshell here, because there are so many aspects to it. So when you look back, Lucinda, at your career, what are you most proud of?
I was going to say producing Ellie. Producing Ellie, producing Headley Britannia, having, a long career with some big ups and some big downs, and surviving that, and now having, a very balanced life, I think, with some amazing people, friends and supporters and family, and, a great team. And I would hope that I've got lots of people who, respect me for that. And I've got, I would hope a few years ahead of me yet, but, might not at top level competing, but literally, I think this last crash has definitely put the kibers on that. But, my head's good, my brain's there, and I've got to be. Oh, I am completely happy with how things are going, and I'm prepared to work for another 10 years. I don't really want to do any more after that. I've got another 5 years of Elliott School, or 4.5 years of Elliott School, and probably another 4 years of her education after that. So 10 years, and that's it for me. I want to sell up and go and retire somewhere nice.
Well, that sounds like a plan. Sounds like you've got a bucket list of the life after horses.
The one thing I would quite like to do is I've got a lovely property here, and I would quite like to have another. I've got Rebecca and Kelly, and I reckon this would be a really good place to have another 1 or 2 riders, sort of slightly permanent riders with 3 or 4 horses. I've got a fantastic house, great facilities, accommodation and all that. And I think it would be a really good place to have a bit of a base for another 1 or 2 riders who, slightly serious riders, who could, we could all work as a team, and I do more from the floor. I mean, I like riding, and but I have to be extremely careful what I sit on.
Well, it sounds like it.
Anything.
Yeah, don't be bouncing around.
There's another little
anything.
ambition. I've still got one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Always, you can challenge. It's another challenge, isn't it?
It is another of life's challenges, but it sounds like you've made your way very successfully there, Lucinda, transitioning from one stage in your life to another, and a lot of useful advice there. So I want to thank you for that. It's always good to catch up with you, and of course we will watch Ellie progress. You never know, she might do what Lissa Green has done and leave the sport and then come back, and you never know what's going to happen down in the future while you're sitting in your rocking chair and enjoying it.
Oh God, I'm not that bad. Listen, if I'm in my rocking chair, you're going to be further down than I am. Or you might be on your Zimmer frame.
Yes, I might be by then on my Zimmer frame, absolutely. All right, Lucinda. Well, always good to catch up with you. Thanks for taking the time to come on the programme, and the very best of luck, and with the healing, of course, of that knee.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
And if you pop over to our website at wispsports.com, you'll find links to Lucinda's social media and to her website. And while you're on the website, be sure to check out all the other shows that we do here. We have top athletes and journalists from many different sports hosting our podcasts, including former Hockeyroos player Ashley Nelson, who hosts The Circle. That, of course, is the hockey podcast. And the cycling podcast, Off the Front, is hosted by former Team USA rider Elizabeth Emery. And we also have some brand new shows that have been launched this fall, including The Dirty Double with Lindsay Jennerick and Patricia Obi, who won the silver medal at the Rio Olympic Games in the lightweight double sculls. They discuss a lot of the real issues that female athletes face. And episode 2 addresses dealing with disappointment. And to hear about the wider issues surrounding women in sport, from gender issues to equality, diversity, opportunity, all of these very important topics are being covered by Dr. Lisa Ingerfield and her guests on Talking Point. So do check that out. Episode 1 is now live. And her topic for this first episode is how women experience marginalization. All of these podcasts are available on iTunes to download to your mobile device. And you can, of course, listen directly on the website at wispsports.com. If you would like to join in the conversation with any of the topics and sports that we cover here at Wisp Sports, do drop us a line to info@wispsports.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are everywhere as Wisp Sports. And, of course, you can post your comments on our Facebook page. Just look for Wisp Sports. We love to hear from you. Our thanks again to our sponsors, Equestrian Collections. Be sure to visit them online at equestriancollections.com. Until the next time, thank you for listening.